Hey, welcome back to another video in our cold calling series. Today we're going to be talking about cold calling scripts. If you search cold calling scripts on YouTube right now, you're probably going to get hundreds, if not thousands, of videos. They all pretty much do the same thing. They hand you somebody else's script, tell you to memorize it, and the problem is that the script was really written for somebody else's voice. It's somebody else's industry and somebody else's buyer. So you try to use it, you sound like you're reading off a page because frankly, you really are. My name is Robert Kuh. I have 25 years in B2B sales across 6 different industries. I've studied every major cold calling framework out there, and what I found really did surprise me. They're all teaching the same structure. The label change, the words change, but the architecture of a successful cold call is identical across every framework. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you that structure and explain what the data says about each section and give you a fill in the blank template so you can build your own script in your own voice for your own industry. No memorizing somebody else's words, just structure that actually works. So let me start with the numbers. So Gong analyzed over 300 million cold calls and found that the average cold call success rate is around 2.3%. That means that for every 100 calls, about 2% result in a meeting. But here's the part most people miss. Teams that use research, targeted lists, and a consistent structure hit about 5 to 8%. That is 2 to 3 times the average. Same phone, same product, completely different approach. So what separates the 2% from the 8%? It's not the script. It is the structure behind the script, and it's the ability to sound like yourself while you're using that script. Most scripts fail because they were written for somebody else's product, somebody else's market, somebody else's personality. You memorize their words and you sound like a robot. Structure works, somebody else's script definitely does not. Now, before we build anything, let me show you what the data says actually works. These are not my opinions, these are patterns from hundreds of millions of analyzed calls. First off, Gong found that permission-based openers convert at around 11.18%. That is the highest performing opener category they measure. What that means is acknowledging that you are interrupting someone's days work better than pretending that you're not. Second, stating the reason for your call explicitly gives you a 2x higher success rate. Do not make the prospect guess why you're calling. Tell them. Third, the right opening line can improve your success rate by 6% compared to the baseline. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between booking one meeting a week and booking 6. And fourth, over 80% of cold calls die in the first 60 seconds. The typical cold call lasts about 80 seconds total. Only 10% of cold calls last longer than 2 minutes. So what this tells us is that the first 30 seconds are really critical. They're everything. And the structure of those 30 seconds is remarkably consistent across every single framework that works. Here's what I found when I studied every major cold calling framework out there. The top trainers, the data from Gong, the frameworks used at companies like Zoom, Medallia, and Gartner, they all break the cold calls into the same 5 different sections. Section 1 is the opener. 5 to 10 seconds. Your job is to identify yourself and really be human. Section 2 is the reason. So 10 to 20 seconds, tell them why you called in their terms, not yours. Section 3 is engage. 1 to 3 minutes, ask questions, get them talking. Section 4 is handle as needed when they push back, emphasize, validate, and re-engage. Section 5 is the next step. So 10 to 15 seconds, a small specific ask that is easy to say yes to. So total call time, under 5 minutes, probably closer to 3 minutes. The label changes from trainer to trainer. One call calls it the reverse pitch, another calls it poke the bear. But when you map them side by side, they're all filling in the same 5 boxes realistically. Your job now is to fill in each box with your own voice. Let me show you how that can be done. So section 1 is the opener. You have 5 to 10 seconds. The end state of a successful opener is simple. The prospect knows who you are and is willing to keep listening. That's it. You're not trying to sell anything in the first 10 seconds. You're just trying to earn the next 20 seconds. What the data says, state your name immediately. Do not hem and haw. Do not start with, how are you doing today? Because they know you do not actually care. And it sounds like every other cold call they have received this week. Gong found that the phrase, did I catch you at a bad time, converts at 2.15%, which is the worst performing opener they measured. So if you're asking that, stop right away. So what does work is acknowledging that you are a stranger calling them, being direct, and being human. Here's your template. Hi, name. This is your name with company. We have not spoken before, but, and then you go into your reason for calling. So no permission question, no do you have 30 seconds. You just transition naturally into why you called. The prospect does not want to be asked for permission. They want to know why you are on the phone. Give them that. Fill in the blank with your own natural transition, the way that you would actually speak if you ran into this person at a coffee shop. This is exactly how it should sound. So section 2 is the reason. You have 10 to 20 seconds. The end state here is pretty critical. When the section works, the prospect recognizes the problem you described from their own experience. They are nodding along because you just described something they are living with right now. The formula that works across every framework is trigger plus problem plus proof. Trigger is the why now. What happened that made this call relevant today? Problem is something they recognize from their own world, their own environment. And proof is evidence that you have helped someone like them previously. So here's the template. The reason I'm calling is I noticed trigger. A lot of similar companies or roles are dealing with problem they recognize. We helped peer company achieve outcome. Would it make sense to compare notes? Notice what this template does not include. There's no product pitch, no feature list, no we are the leading provider of. Everything in this section is about their world, not yours. The trigger is what gives you the right to call. Without it, you are just another stranger asking for time. With it, you are somebody who has done their homework and has something relevant to say. So section 3 is the engage section. This is where the call opens up. You have about 1 to 2, maybe 3 minutes with this section. The end state is that the prospect is talking more than you. You understand their situation well enough to know whether there is a real fit and a real timeline. Every framework agrees on the same principles here. Ask the questions, do not pitch. The top trainers all teach some version of get the prospect talking in the first 30 seconds, and you have one. The person who talks the least controls the call. 3 questions that work in virtual any industry. First, the current state. How are you currently handling the problem X? This opens the door without assuming anything about their situation. You're not telling them that they have a problem. You're asking how they see the problem or how they view it. Second, the timeline question. What does the timeline look like for their project or initiative? This helps to qualify urgency and reveals external deadlines. In industries where permits, construction schedules, budget cycles, or regulatory timelines drive the buying process, this question is gold. And third, the stakeholder question. Who else would need to weigh in on this type of decision? This maps the buying committee early on. Before you spend weeks working a single contact who cannot actually move the deal forward. Fill in the blanks with your own industry language, your buyer's project, and your buyer's world as well. Now, section 4 is handling the objections because this is going to come up. This happens as needed and it'll happen throughout the call. The end state is that the conversation stays alive. You've worked through the objections. You have earned the right to continue. So the data from Gong shows that reps who have passed through 2 or 3 or more objections have significantly higher close rates. The ones who gave up after the first pushback reduced their success rate by around 39%. So most reps will quit after 1 objection. Do not be most reps. You're not average. The formula that works across every major framework is 3 steps. Emphasize, which means acknowledge what they said. Validate, which means restate the objection so they know you heard them, and then re-engage, which means ask a question that keeps the conversation moving. So here's how that sounds with the 3 most common objections. Send me an email. So your response could be, happy to, just so I can make it relevant to you. Are you more focused on option A or option B right now? This turns a brush off into a qualifying questions. Not interested? Your response could be, I understand, but before I let you go, can I ask one quick question? Then ask the one quick question that would tell you whether there is a fit. Fill that in with whatever question matters most in your world. And then the other one, we already have a vendor. Your response, that makes sense. I'm not asking you to change anything. Just curious, how is it working for you? The specific problem that you referenced previously in your conversation. You're not competing, you're opening up a conversation with them. So section 5 is the next step, and 10 to 15 seconds is really all it takes for this. This is where most reps will actually drop the ball. The end state is either a specific meeting on the calendar or clear permission to follow up with something useful. If they're interested, your template is would day or other day work for a time commitment. I will send a calendar invite right now. So fill in obviously 2 specific days, not sometime next week. Be specific. Tuesday or Thursday, and fill in your ask. In my world, that is a lunch and learn. In yours, it might be a 20-minute call, a demo, or a site visit. It could be anything. Whatever is the natural step in your sales process. If they are not ready, your template is no problem. Would it be okay if I sent you something useful and follow up in a specific time frame? Fill in something that adds value, a case study, an article, a comparison, not a brochure, and give a specific time frame for the follow-up, not sometime in a couple of weeks, in 30 days after the permit comes through. Both of those are good outcomes. Both keep the relationship alive. In complex B2B sales, the next conversation is where deals actually start to happen, not on the cold call, obviously. Now, let me show you how I fill in this template using a trigger that works in virtually every industry, a new regulation. So every industry has compliance deadlines, new data privacy rules, updated safety standards, changes to reporting requirements, environmental regulation, tax code updates. It does not matter whether you sell software, financial services, manufacturing equipment, or building materials. There's always a regulation creating a sense of urgency somewhere in your buyer's world. Here's how I would fill in the template using a regulatory trigger. My opener. So, hi, name. This is Robert Kuh with X company. We have not spoken before, but the reason I'm calling is I notice your industry has to comply with new regulation by X deadline. A lot of similar companies are finding that their current setup will not meet the new requirements. We helped peer company get compliant 3 months ahead of the schedule. How are you currently planning to handle the new requirements? What does your timeline look like for compliance, and who else on your team is involved in that actual process? So my next step would make it sense. So my next step is, would it make sense to set up a 20-minute call so I can walk you through how we help peer company get ahead of this with Tuesday or Thursday work? Notice what makes the regulatory trigger so powerful. The deadline is real. It is external. You did not create that false sense of urgency. The government did. And that means the urgency is built into the trigger itself. You do not have to actually manufacture it. And this same structure works whether the regulation is GDPR, SOC 2, OSHA, you name it. So swap in your regulation, your bar, and your proof, and you have a call that sounds like you not like somebody else's script. It will sound exactly like you. One more thing. If you watch my first video on the LinkedIn first cold call method, you know that I prefer to send a LinkedIn connection request before I ever pick up the phone. You're already on their profile doing your research. Sending the connection request takes like 5 seconds. If they accept before you call, your opener changes completely. Instead of we have not spoken before, you can say we recently connected on LinkedIn. Thank you for accepting. That is a fundamentally warmer conversation. I see 30 to 40% increase in meeting close rate when the prospect has actually accepted my invite before I call. I'll put a link to that video below. So here's your complete cold call template. All 5 sections on one slide. Pause the video, screenshot this, or download the free template from my Substack. Opener. Hi, name. This is blank with blank. We have not spoken before, but reason I noticed a lot of similar companies' roles deal with situation. So how are you currently handling? What is the timeline for, and who else is involved with that decision? So that's it. It's 5 sections under 5 minutes in your own voice. Fill in your information, and you'll be able to walk through it very quickly. In the next video, I'm going to break down the specific cold call openers that book enterprise meeting. So I'll give you real examples, live rewrites, what actually works when you're calling someone you might see at a trade show next month. If you want the free cold calling template with all 5 sections, fill in the blank prompts and industry examples, head to mindthegapsales.substack.com. The link is in the description below. If this was useful, subscribe. My name is Robert Kuh. This is Mind the Gap, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.